Welcome, everyone, to Football Clowns Anonymous, Episode 3. My name is Ren Smith, and I am a football clown. And I am here with my co-clown, Kurtis Pinkey.
You're
sporting the clown backdrop and everything now, on brand. Gotta love it.
Love it. Yeah, this is a gift that Ren and I send to each other quite often because we acknowledge that we're both clowns, and I need to let him know on regular occasion that he is indeed a clown for whatever mishap he may have stepped into that particular day or for that event.
Exactly. I'm certainly guilty of being a clown from time to time, and I think it's very emblematic of certain mistakes that we've made over the years, and it's actually sort of the foundation for why we named this podcast the way we did, because sometimes we're just really clowning around.
Yeah, I've got it locked and loaded for when we wrap up this. Ren and I like to play chess together, and I've got it locked and loaded for when we wrap up this game because Ren's looking like he's on his way to a nice little L here, and it's just a nice feeling.
I had a 6-game lead in a series against Kurtis, and I watched it evaporate. Just absolutely devastating.
It's one of the best things that's ever happened. I love it.
It's one of the worst things that's ever happened. All right. Well, how are you? Did you get a chance to catch the Hall of Fame game on Thursday?
I caught bits and pieces. The first half I was busy trying to put my son to sleep, so I missed that, and then caught a couple plays, and then we had a rain delay. So
a rain delay that turned into a rain cancellation.
Right. So I caught about as much of a Hall of Fame game as one should catch, except it looked like it was actually a good game. So I'm a little sad about that, but
it's actually kind of surprising that it was a pretty good game. Like Cam Akers got a touchdown pass from Case Keenum. I don't remember if that was the second quarter or third quarter, but you're seeing some guys out there that you recognize at least, and it was a 21-17 game or something like that. So it's nice to see.
Yeah,
get a little bit of that action back in there.
Yeah, whet the appetite a little bit.
Yep, exactly. And of course, everybody, all the announcers splooging over CJ Stroud and Caleb Williams on the sidelines.
Oh, of course. What else are they going to talk about?
Basically nothing. You're not going to be talking about any of the players in that game that were actually playing on the field.
Yeah, one of the very few plays I did catch, I think it was Troy was, doing his usual thing of, shitting all over somebody making a boneheaded mistake. And I was like, well, he's in mid-season form already. He's very vocal with when somebody makes a mistake on the field, which I do kind of appreciate. I mean, it provides a glimpse into what it was probably like being in the huddle with him back in the day.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah,
he always dresses in his gold jacket though when he calls the Hall of Fame game, and it's a flex.
Oh, you got to. If I had one, I'd be wearing it every day. That's 365.
Except some years it'd be 366.
That's true.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Yeah. There's not much to talk about with it, but it was exciting to see a little.
Football's back. That was the last weekend. We've just officially closed out the last weekend until February without football.
It's a good feeling.
We can all celebrate.
It's a good feeling. We can definitely celebrate. I mean, the best football doesn't start for another month, but hey, we're on the We're on the home stretch now, so got some preseason action to kind of tide us over. So last week we went through the NFC and we predicted over-unders on win totals and also division winners. And as a reminder, Kurtis and I have a nice bottle of whiskey riding on the winner of whoever picks more of these over-unders correct at the end of the regular season, obviously. But we only disagreed on 3 picks. We disagreed on the Commanders. I had over 6.5. I had under 6.5. Kurtis is over 6.5. I've got an over on the Niners at 11.5. Kurtis has an under, and I've got an under on the Seahawks at 7.5, and Kurtis has the over. So that's the only differences we have so far. It'd be interesting to kind of see how that shakes out. And I guess we don't have to rehash it, but now that you hear it summarized like that, any new feelings?
I feel really good about my position. The only one that I think is a huge question mark, and I think we discussed this last week, was the Seahawks line. That to me, that felt like a coin flip line. The other ones, I mean, statistically, the Niners aren't hitting that, and then the Commanders 6.5 feels I'm not gonna put too much respect on a division rival, but it feels a little disrespectful. So I feel pretty good about those.
Yeah, I hate to say that looking at those again, I kind of like your position more than I like my position.
Yeah, that's not even a question.
But you know what
Hence,
that means? You know what that means? It means I'm probably going to come out ahead of time.
Yeah, this is why Ren gets his gift more often than not. This is just kind of how it shakes out. When Ren makes, he places his bets, makes his position, and I, have to come in and correct him. Like, yo, Ren, come on, dog. Like, let's not be foolish about this. Let's not be a clown, dog. Like, come on.
But we are basically leaning into this, So I'm trying to be as clown as possible over here.
Gotcha.
Yeah. No, that's not what it is.
I appreciate you, taking one for the brand.
Even if I think your position looks better, that probably means that you're doomed because, whatever you think makes sense at the beginning of the season. And you know what, to be honest, it's not even you. It's just in general. Whatever you think is going to happen at the beginning of the season is just totally not. And I'll bring up again, as a reminder, Kurtis picked the Bears to win the NFC North last year. They took fourth. You know what? I can't let that one go until further notice, until we have new division winners now. And I can't wait to revisit this, maybe during wild card weekend because the regular season will be over. We'll have a nice time revisiting these picks. And man, there's going to be some self-insulting probably because there's picks we agree on here that we probably completely botch.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, in hindsight, I think the logic that we used is probably okay. It's just I suspect most of our failures are going to come from the fluke injury that takes out a key player for a significant chunk of the season. If I maybe I'm just kind of pumping us up a little bit too much, but cautiously optimistic. We'll just say that, I guess.
Yeah,
that we know what we're talking about.
Sure, I'd love to believe that we're not clowns, but whatever we got to do. All right, yeah. Let's go ahead and get into it. Let's hit the resume button here after a week, and let's see here. We got the AFC, and it looks like you're leading us off with the AFC East. Bring it on.
Let's go ahead and start with the East. We've got the Bills at 10.5, Dolphins at 9.5, Jets at 9.5, Patriots at 4.5. I am going to go ahead and take the Bills as the division winners here. The Dolphins, they have a nice late season meltdown ahead of them. A, because we've seen it the past couple seasons. B, looking at their schedule, they have a pretty tough back half of their schedule, and I don't think that smiles favorably upon them. I don't necessarily believe in the Jets myself. I want to see it from Aaron Rodgers before I make a bet on them to be successful. We're removed from, how many years removed from him being, an MVP quarterback in Green Bay. Now we are coming off, an Achilles. The offensive line supposedly is revamped. He's got a couple of offensive weapons. Defense is pretty cool, but Josh Allen is still the top dog in the AFC in the East until further notice is my position on that. And then the Patriots, we don't even need to talk about them. That's a whole another can of worms. I'm sure they'll be. I don't know if I would like to see them be nice in the next few years, but it wouldn't surprise me if maybe they could turn it around. But this is not the year. They're not in that conversation for me.
I hope that the Patriots are bottom feeders for the rest of my lifetime because they won 6 Super Bowls and I'm ready for them to just be terrible for 50 years. Like it was hard to watch at that time. And Kurtis and I've talked about this offline quite a bit about how I don't think we appreciated the Tom Brady years as much as we maybe should have from a objective football fandom. And that's mostly because of his just dominating the whole league. You hate him because you ain't him or because you don't have him on your team, basically. But
100%
in reality, it was pretty.
That image where it shows where it compares the two quarterbacks, and it's one side is like 3 MVPs, however many Super Bowls, stupid amount of yards and touchdowns, blah blah blah, and then the right side is basically a carbon copy of it. and then you pull it up and it's the first half of Tom Brady's career and then the second half of Tom Brady's career. Quite possibly. I'm gonna dig it up for you. I'm gonna show it to you later.
Please.
Quite possibly the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And
Please.
both of them are Hall of Fame careers individually. The GOAT is all it is. He's the GOAT.
He is absolutely the GOAT. So I'm going to disagree with you here, and I think that Josh Allen is. I'm a big fan of Josh Allen, actually, even though I think he's prone to taking risks and making mistakes to taking risks. He kind of reminds me of Brett Favre, I think, a little bit in that sense.
Yes.
And he's the best. He's the best. Yeah, he's the best quarterback in this division. I kind of went with a little bit of a fly upset here, and I took the Dolphins to win this division this year. I see the Bills having lost Stephon Diggs. As far as I'm aware, they haven't replaced him with a marquee receiver. They still have James Cook, great running back. They still have Dalton Kincaid, showed a lot of promise last year. So I wouldn't be surprised if that works out. But I have a feeling that I'm not going to say they're on their way out, because they're absolutely not. I just think it's a little bit more of a flicker a little bit this year of not being quite so dominant. And I think the Dolphins are actually positioned this year to take a little bit more of that pie from them. That being said, I didn't look at the schedule to see if the Dolphins have any, you said late game schedule or late season schedule. If the Dolphins got to go play at the Bills in January or something like that.
November 3rd.
I'm sorry, we know that it's November 3rd because we're considering going to that game.
We're looking at that game. That's right.
Yeah. So I should have known that. But if they got any other cold weather games or things like that, we all saw what happened to them when they went to go visit the Chiefs in the playoffs. That was set up for absolute failure on their part. So I mean, I think it's one of those that comes down to week 18, and I'm going to give it to the Dolphins this time, I think, because it was close for the Bills last year too. They if I remember right, they struggled kind of early in the season, and they really kind of stumbled into the 2 seed. I don't know if they really deserved it. It was a 2 seed, I think.
I would slightly. So you last week you made the argument that the Eagles, that you didn't quite buy into the Eagles because their second half of their season had quite a few question marks. And I would argue that the Bills were a smidge of the reverse or opposite of that. I mean, when they got rid of Ken Dorsey, halfway through the season, that's when they started winning games. I mean, and that was while Stephon Diggs started seeing, 3-4 targets a game. He was putting up if any of y'all had Stephon Diggs in fantasy football, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When he was putting up those crazy, 3 receptions for 20-yard stat lines type, he was basically non-existent in their game plan for the back half of the season. And they succeeded. I mean, like you said, they were the 2 seed. They put together a stellar stellar performance in the back half of the season, and were able to almost get home field advantage for the playoffs. Outside of losing Diggs, which wasn't a part of the offense in the first place, or he was, but at the back half of the season.
But it was over I'm talking about it was over the last few years. That run at the end of the season was impressive, but it was relatively improbable also. Despite you fire a guy and you start winning games.
It's improbable if you don't have Josh Allen. Like, Josh Allen's that guy. Like, if name a quarterback not named Patrick Mahomes that you would rather have. Name a quarterback not named Patrick Mahomes that you would rather have over Josh Allen.
For the next 10 years, it's going to be that's a tough sell. I think it's probably Josh Allen. Now,
that's what I'm saying.
I got to say no, and I'll say too. If my team's down 4 points in the fourth quarter with 1:30 to play, and I got to throw a guy in there, Josh Allen's in top 3 in the league to go down and win the game. Now, also, Josh Allen is probably top 3 to throw an interception on that drive, but at the same time, it's crazy. You know what? It's a gut pick. I'm going with the gut pick. We don't want it to all be the same. The division winners are not going to all be the same this year. I took the Niners. Last week I took the Niners, and I think I used kind of the same exact logic, and I didn't feel great about it. I'm sticking with my pick. I'm not going back and changing anything from last week, but just to say that this team was dominant last year, they're going to be dominant again this year. There's going to be some randomness. There's going to be some variability. So I'm taking somebody new this time, but I do think that the Bills are still going to have a good season. I actually have them under 10.5 wins because I think they're going to be I think 9 or 10 is where I'm going to stick them. They're going to get a wild card. That's where
I have the under as well.
Do you really? You have the Bills winning
Yes.
the division, so you have this
Yes.
whole division just being garbage.
I have everybody under except for the Patriots, so I'm going to take the over on the Patriots. And
it's really interesting that you have a team in the division with under 10.5 wins.
My logic is there's just going to be a blood, similar to how we were kind of looking at the NFC West a couple of years ago, or how we were looking at the hell's the Browns division? What is that? The NFC North?
AFC North.
AFC North, excuse me. Yep. How we were looking at them last year. We just kind of expect these teams to beat up on each other. I mean, outside of the Patriots, I mean, the Dolphins, Jets, and Bills all are expected to be pretty stout, complete-ish teams. It wouldn't surprise me to see all those games, split throughout the season. The Bills have a tough-ish schedule. I mean, they have a first place schedule. The Dolphins have that tough back half of the season schedule, and I already said how I feel about the Jets. I want them to prove it before I'm going to place any chips on them. Especially if Aaron Rodgers at 40 years old, coming off the Achilles, if something else were to happen, a hamstring, a shoulder, a pinky nail, I don't know, whatever ailment may befall him.
Pinky nail?
Sure did. I don't know what 40-year-olds have to deal with. A colonoscopy or whatever.
You're only like what, 2-3 years away from that?
We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that.
We just did.
6 years. 6 years.
And please understand I was joking, but
but yeah, so I mean I feel, and this is very much a feelings, no facts. I mean, I guess most of these picks, all of these picks are feelings, no facts, but that's just kind of where my head's at, that this is going to be a division that we see, to your point, coming down to the wire at the end of the season, but because of the fact that they were just beating up on each other all year, had to deal with their respective tough schedules. And that's why I felt comfortable taking the unders on all of those, especially thinking about our whiskey bet. I thought it was more prudent to take unders as opposed to overs with respect to this division.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I mean, I think we see the same sort of outcome. In general, we see the same sort of outcome from this division. It's just one team emerges versus another. The whiskey bet doesn't depend on who wins the division, but it does now come down to the Dolphins and whether or not they can win 10 games, which is going to be really interesting.
So you took the over on the Dolphins.
I took the over on the Dolphins. The rest of them, I agree with you. I don't think the Bills hit 10.5. I have the exact same feeling about the Jets. Prove it. I'm really interested to see if Aaron Rodgers can perform at a high level for that team. It's again a similar situation to Tom Brady going to the Bucs, where he went and won a Super Bowl. It's like, if he could do that, it would be objectively, as a football fan, really cool, and as a Vikings fan and an Aaron Rodgers not fan, very uncool. And I got the over on the Patriots too. 4.5 is too low. I don't have the stones to take the Patriots at
4.5. I mean, you tried that with the Cardinals last year. Didn't work out for you.
No, not at all. No, it's rough. I mean, yeah, of course the Patriots could win 3 games this year. They're one of the worst teams in the NFL, and maybe Drake May comes in and wins in 5 or 6 games, but I'm not seeing it. Or I'm sorry.
Well, let's be clear. So I mean, we kind of glossed over the Patriots pretty quickly there, but let's be clear. Jacoby Brissett's going to start for the Patriots, and he's not a bad quarterback. He deserves a starting position in the NFL. From everything we've seen over his career, he's not a bad quarterback by any stretch of the imagination. The weapons he has around him, huge question mark. I don't even know who he's got at receiver. I think Juju's still there.
I think so. And that's why I say Drake May. It's not because,
I don't know who the hell is on that team.
Yeah, it's not because he's going to come in and win right away. It's more just that I'm worried about that team winning a lot of games and having Patriots Nation, kind of like the Vikings with JJ McCarthy, getting kind of impatient and wanting to see May before the end of the year. And maybe he's that guy and gets him over that. But we'll have to see. It's just too much to expect somebody to win under 4.5 games.
Yeah, and peeking again at their schedule. I mean, they do have a tough open to their schedule: Cincinnati, Seattle, the Jets in New York, or in Jersey, I guess, San Francisco, Miami, Houston, Jacksonville for a little bit of relief, and then back to the Jets. So I mean, we probably will see Drake may. If Brissett can't pull off some miracles in that stretch, it kind of reminds me of when we were talking about the Vikings and Sam Darnold and McCarthy. As a brutal open to their schedule, it's kind of the same argument that we were making for the Vikings, that the fan base is not going to be patient enough to wait for that.
No, probably not. I would see that for the Patriots as well. So
yeah,
I think we're good and well settled here, and go Dolphins. And we really need to go to that game. We
do,
because
it's probably going to decide quite a few things for us.
It's going to be pivotal to who's buying who whiskey by the end of the season. So let's move on now to the AFC South, and I'm actually excited about this because it's a callback to 2 weeks ago when we talked about making one crazy prediction. Make one prediction that's just out to lunch. You shouldn't make it. And my prediction was the Texans are getting the 1 seed in the AFC going into the playoffs. And I'm sticking, I'm sticking with that. But with that, I have to pick the Texans to win this division. And with the upgrade of the wide receiver room to get Stephon Diggs, and with the other weapons that CJ Stroud has, and with the sort of mojo that he had, maybe he'll have a sophomore slump that I don't see coming. But with that sort of mojo, and you had Will Anderson Jr. on the defensive side of the ball winning. I think he won Defensive Player of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year. In addition, that team could be scary and could be a force. And this isn't a division where I quite see the same beating. I mean, maybe a little bit, but not quite the same kind of in the trenches as I see with the AFC East. Quite so much of that. So we'll see. But I see an opportunity for the Texans to kind of rise to the top on that. So I'm taking them to win the division. They might win the 1 seed. That was supposed to be an extra crazy prediction. So I'm not going to die on that hill, but I'm taking the Texans here. Well, who do you got?
Definitely got the Texans. I flirted with trying to maybe be cute with the Colts or even cuter with the Titans, but it's got to be the Texans. They're the way that Stroud was looking, the weapons that he's found himself surrounded with. Let's not forget Joe Mixon, and I don't know if they made any improvements to the offensive line or anything, but you already mentioned the defense. Being coached up by D'Amico Ryans. Let's not forget that he was a dog on defense himself. It's hard not. It's kind of a fool's bet to bet against the Texans, in my humble opinion. Of course, it's going to be the popular bet, and if you want to make some money, go away from them. But you got to pick the Texans. Yeah. It is where it is. One point that I would disagree with you on, though, is this division was pretty tough last year. With intra-division, it was a close race for playoff seeding all the way up until the end of the season last year. Let's not forget that the Colts and the Jaguars, I believe, had a game week 17, or I believe it was week 18, to determine if the Colts were going to make their way into the playoffs, led by Gardner Minshew. So I would push back and suggest that this division will probably be a little bit more back and forth, or there will be a lot more intrigue with this division than you might think just looking at these teams at face value. The Colts, we got Richardson coming back healthy, I think. Supposedly he's got a nice supporting cast around him. We kind of forgot about Jonathan Taylor. I don't really hear his name thrown around as much anymore.
No, but he's been the truth at certain times.
Yeah, he's kind of a dog.
Yeah.
The Titans have surrounded Will Levis with a good amount of weapons, even though we see Hopkins just got himself a nice 4 to 6 week knee injury, I believe it was. I don't think it requires surgery, but that's not great for your 30-plus, veteran receiver.
No.
Jaguars.
That's an interesting one. How much? Where are you going with the Jags? The line's 8.5.
Well, I'm going to take the under on the Jags, 8.5. Until further notice, I don't think I can support anything that Jacksonville does. Their roster moves don't make the most sense to me. Trevor Lawrence doesn't necessarily inspire confidence. I don't know, man. That's a tough team. I don't even who do they? Oh, ETN. I mean, in theory, they should be okay. They haven't done it. Doug Peterson hasn't shown anything to make me confident in the play calling and the offensive, strategy that they have. Trevor Lawrence hasn't shown anything to make me confident in him as a quarterback. The offense as a whole. Who do they have? They have Gabe Davis to support Christian Kirk now. They brought in Gabe Davis to replace Calvin Ridley. It doesn't make sense. They got rid of Zay Jones, who was kind of an important piece for them. I just don't get it. Like, I don't understand what's going on there.
They kind of remind me of the Chargers. We'll
Yes.
see what happens with Jim Harbaugh now as the coach, but they kind of remind me of the Chargers of like somehow they're less than the sum of their parts.
Yes.
And they consistently find ways to fail, even though on paper they should be good. I'm rolling the dice. I think the 8.5 number is right. I think that's the correct number. So I'm forced to make a pick. I'm going to go with the over on the Jags. I'm going to give Trevor Lawrence a chance. I probably shouldn't, because I haven't seen enough. I think your point about inspiring confidence is a good way to put that, because he's definitely shown flashes, but he's also definitely shown flashes the other way.
The amount of turnovers that he had last year was insane.
Yeah,
he was fumbling interceptions to himself. I don't even know how you would do that, but he was capable of it.
I don't know whether or not he's in a contract situation or whatnot at this moment.
He just got a contract. They just gave him the bag. That's also bizarre to me, that they just gave him a contract. He hasn't shown anything to suggest that he deserves that. Maybe a rant for another podcast, but I just don't. Just quarterback contracts in general, because we touched on Jordan Love's last week. Tua just got a contract.
Yep. I think the NFL, to be fair, I think the NFL in recent years has been very move on quick from a lot of these quarterbacks. And so it's actually nice to see that they're giving some of these guys that showed promise in college, or have shown, at least at times, shown flashes. They've giving them a chance to kind of develop a little bit more, rather than just say next man all the time. But at the same time, I agree with your points that these may not have been the right move at the right time either. So
yeah, if Trevor Lawrence was a Viking and he just got this contract, it's the $4 or $5 million for 200 whatever type of deal. Would you be happy about that?
That depends. How's he been playing? I mean, is he playing like he is for the Jaguars? Because
that is the scenario, sir.
Then probably not. Then
you'd
probably
be disgusted. You would be disgusted. Let's keep it $150, sir. You would be disgusted.
I'm not sure I'd be disgusted. I wouldn't be happy. But it depends on the situation and who we have sort of as the next guy behind him.
You would feel like your team is stuck in purgatory.
Good
enough to maybe think we can make playoffs. Definitely not good enough to think we can make the Super Bowl.
Sir, please take a rewind. Take a rewind and listen to what you just said, and try to compare it to what the reality of a Vikings fan is. Oh wait, you just fucking described it. We are talking about the AFC. We're talking about the AFC this week, and we still get run on the couch. Perpetual purgatory. The two P's. Perpetual purgatory. That's where we live. Oh, so anyway, that's aside. We're talking here about
What are your overs and under? What are we?
So I agree with your points about the Colts. I like the prospect of Anthony Richardson coming back. The team in general, I think 8.5 is actually a pretty good number. Also, I'm also going to take the over on that, and I'm guessing you have the over as well.
I've got the over on everybody, under on the Jaguars.
Okay. You get the over on the Titans as well, so we're gonna be different on that one too.
I do. I think I've kind of touched on this for a couple during a couple of different episodes, that I think the Titans could potentially be a sneaky good team this year. A lot of things got to fall their way. We just talked about D-Hop working through his injury, which is not great for my prediction here, but we'll see. I think it's fun to be cautiously optimistic that Will Levis will be halfway decent. So that's kind of, I think, where my head's at for there.
It wouldn't shock me. For me, the under has a little bit to do with DeAndre Hopkins. It has to do with losing your best player on offense, Derrick Henry, to the Ravens. It just seems like a team that's kind of stuck in a holding pattern right now. That's not mediocre, but worse than mediocre. And I just don't know, especially in that division where you've got you get the Jaguars who are perpetually mediocre. You've got the Colts that have some promise this year. You've got the Texans that will lay waste to you. So it's a tough division. I just feel like it's a tough division when you got to play 6 of your games against these teams to make that headway. So 6.5. Sure. again, I think all of these numbers feel right except for the Texans, where I want to take them. I want to take them to win 12 games, but I'm insane probably for thinking that. But yeah, I think the numbers feel right, and it's a close, tightly contested division potentially.
Sure. Yeah, that it'll be a fun one to watch for sure.
Yep. So we're disagreeing on. So we got 3 disagreements already in this AFC, and we're halfway done with it. Whereas we had 3 disagreements all the way through the entire NFC. Very interesting.
Love that.
Why don't you take us through the AFC North, sir?
Yeah. So AFC North, we got the Bengals at a 10.5 line, Browns 8.5, Ravens 10.5, Steelers at 8.5. I am going to be a little boring here. Well, I don't know if this is actually boring, but I'm going to take the Ravens to win the division.
That is boring.
It is a little boring. Okay, that's what I assumed. I didn't know if the Bengals may have snuck in there as a favorite, but what Lamar and that offense was able to do in the first year of that offensive scheme was incredible. I mean, that was the best year Lamar has had. They fell short, of course, to the Chiefs, but one more year in that offensive scheme, learning and becoming more familiar with that, with the situation. I don't necessarily. They lost a few pieces, but I don't necessarily see how they could be too much worse than what they were last year. It's hard to envision them being significantly better, but I think the floor is such that it's hard to not pick them to be the division winners. And I think the biggest competition would be the Bengals. Joe Burrow's been hurt a lot, man. Like I don't care if it's been fluke injuries or not. He's got to stay on the field. If he's not staying on the field, the Bengals can't be the winners. And if there is a higher probability for Joey B getting hurt for whatever reason, it would give me pause, and it kind of makes me want to fade the Bengals a smidge. Couple that with Jamar Chase is not in camp right now, and I know this kind of it is a contract situation. It is what it is. He'll probably come back and be the same, Jamar Chase that we've grown to know and love. T. Higgins is dealing with his own contract stuff. In theory, he's got a fire lit under his ass, and he's going to be playing for his $100 million contract. Hopefully, I think he deserves it myself. The running game is what it is. The defense is never. It's been a long time since we really thought about the Bengals defense as being a force. So I don't know. I think it's easy to pick the Ravens, and that's kind of why I went there. Bengals would have. I flirted with the Bengals, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Browns and Steelers, I'm not doing it. I don't believe in Voldemort. The Steelers, they're going to get over 500 because it's Mike Tomlin, but some combination of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields is not going to do it for me.
Nope, and that is exactly the reason why I'm actually taking the Steelers under. I'm bold enough to say that exactly. I'm bold enough to say that the Steelers are not going to be 500 this year. I'm rolling the dice.
You're crazy as shit.
Give me one reason, and go back and look at the tape from Russell Wilson's last 2 years. I just gave it to. Go Mike back Tomlin. And look at because Mike Tomlin is my one reason. Mike Tomlin has not had to deal with hot dog Russell Wilson though. You just made the argument last week, the week before. What's the difference between Russ and Kenny Pickett in terms of level of skill? I made a statement. Some argument relative to hot dog Wilson versus Kenny Pickett. I don't remember what we were talking about, to be honest with you. Even if you didn't bring it up, what's the difference between Russell Wilson and Kenny Pickett? Kenny Pickett is competent. Go back and look at Russell Wilson playing for the Broncos. You're gonna tell me that there is a drop off in skill. No. From Kenny Pickett to Russell Wilson. That's the argument you're trying to make to me. No, I'm actually not. But this is why I send Ren this clown gift on a regular basis. This is a Russell Wilson. This is a Russell Wilson revenge pick on my not revenge. I don't have anything. I do have things against him from when he was a Seahawk, but he was awful as a Denver Bronco, and until further notice, he continues to be awful. And I debated between last or 2 weeks ago when we made the crazy prediction about what's going to happen this year. I had two things floating around in my mind. The one was the Texans to be the 1 seed. That's the one I actually said. The other one was the Steelers are not going to be 500 under Mike Tomlin for the first time, because I see the Justin Fields and Russell Wilson as almost like both of them are bad to me, and the combination of them might actually be worse, because they can't figure, because you've seen we have teams that are worse than the sum of their parts. I think that's the Steelers this year. We'll have to see, but I've completely glossed over my go ahead. You got something.
It's an interesting take. I guess the reason I'm not quite as quick to write off Russell Wilson, there are a lot of negative reports about him. He's kind of a goofball in the locker room. Not great to be around. All these other fun stuff. He looked like a shell of himself last year. Maybe this is what the Seahawks knew, and that's why were so willing to get rid of him. But I mean, we've seen quarterbacks fall off before and then come back with different coaches, different teams, different scenarios, and do pretty good. The examples that come to mind, I believe this was actually both with the Cardinals, Kurt Warner and Carson Palmer.
Yeah, okay.
Changes of scenery. They
Sure.
balled out of control, had the Cardinals in play. I think the Cardinals didn't win the Super Bowl, but they were looking. Or did they win the Super Bowl with?
No, Cardinals have never won.
No, they didn't. But he was looking sharp with the Cardinals for there for a minute. Same with Carson Palmer. So I mean, it's hard for me to sit here and say that even with all the negative press that Wilson has received, that somebody that just 2-3 years ago that we were talking about as a potential Hall of Fame candidate is just all of a sudden, chopped liver. Like how did is the fall off from grace that serious?
It is hard to look.
Go ahead.
It's hard to look at his time in Denver and not see a serious fall from grace, though. To be fair, I think also too. I think the Broncos probably had that same logic by bringing in Sean Payton and saying, hey, it's a coach. So you bring in Russell Wilson, right? This is the answer. Finally the quarterback carousel in Denver that's been there since Peyton Manning won the Super Bowl, and they've had 15 starting quarterbacks or something just stupid like that. Finally, it's over, right? So you bring in Russell Wilson, he sucks, but must be the coach. You bring in a good coach, Super Bowl champion Sean Payton, it's still Russ. So until he proves that it's not Russ, it's Russ. And that's fair. That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going with it.
That's a fair counterpoint. I don't have too many arguments against that.
Yeah, and I agree with your points about Voldemort. The Browns are a.
Let's clear this up. Voldemort is Deshaun Watson. I stole that name from a different podcast that I listened to, where they nicknamed him Voldemort, and I just found that incredibly entertaining, and I just had to go ahead and steal that. So for future reference, Deshaun Watson is Voldemort.
Yep. And I should be careful because I call him Voldemort because I hear you say it, not because I listen to the same podcast.
Such a fucking good nickname.
It's funny. It is funny. But we're talking about Deshaun Watson. Until further notice, he can't be trusted, and it's an under 8.5. I feel kind of similar to, and maybe not quite as much, but I feel similar to the Bears pick, where under 8.5 feels like a pretty smooth spot to make a little change here.
Yeah, their defense was historic last year.
Yep.
You cannot bet on that to repeat. Their offense is hot dog water until we see that Deshaun can perform as an NFL quarterback, which I guess technically he showed some flashes of what used to be or what could be. There have been whispers that just the drive is not there, which why it doesn't need to be. He was guaranteed $250 million. What does he need to, he beat the case, got his $250 million, and he's chilling. Like what is the motivate? I don't think he cares about a Super Bowl ring. I don't think he, maybe I'm just making assumptions about a person that I have I don't know him, but I'm just kind of reading the tea leaves from, what I'm seeing from the outside looking in. I don't see much motivation for him to get what more could you say about the man to make him feel bad about himself? Oh, he can't throw a football anymore. wipe my tears with these $100 bills that I got because I got so many of them. Like, what? Who fucking cares? So I just don't like until further notice. I don't think Deshaun cares about playing football as much as he used to. It's an easy under for the Browns.
No, I agree with that, but I do think it's kind of funny how you say the Browns had a historic defense last year. There's no way that can repeat. But earlier in this same division, you said the Ravens had a historic season and it's going to repeat. It's hard to see them getting, or, you use different words.
Lamar definitely had his best season as a quarterback. The Ravens offense as a whole, I think, looked the best. That was the best version of the Ravens offense that we've seen with Lamar at the helm up to this point. And I think it's easier for offenses to repeat than it is for defenses, just anecdotally speaking, from what I've seen as my years of being a casual NFL fan. There's definitely been a lot more back-to-back years of NFL offenses just being dominant versus NFL defenses being locked down. Like, we don't say the 85 Bears were sick and then the 86 Bears were also sick. We don't say the 2000 Ravens were dope and then the 2001 Ravens were dope. And we don't do that. But we can say Tom Brady has X amount of years in a row. We know that offense is going to be locked down or the lights out. We know the Patrick Mahomes-led Chiefs offense. We know that's going to function right. We just made that argument for the Bills. So I guess that's where I would make that distinction.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. The defense is not repeating versus the offense is repeating. And either way, we agree on this team. I mean, I don't think we don't see where they're going. But I gotta now circle back all the way full circle as we end this division. The Bengals here. I've got the Ravens as an over. I've got the Ravens as an over. I've got the Bengals as an over, and I've given the division to the Bengals. And I said you were boring. I agree with you that it is easiest to take the Ravens, and I really wanted to. I do have one little bit of research tidbit that I can't actually claim credit for having done too much of this research on my own, but here's an interesting tidbit for you. Assuming that Joe Burrow stays healthy, because you said if he doesn't stay healthy, I have the wrong team, obviously. However, assuming he stays healthy, the Bengals were the fourth team in the AFC North last year, which means that they were the worst team.
Schedule,
which means that they get an easy schedule. So the games that they share a lot of games between the Ravens. Obviously, they play the same division, they play the same AFC division, they play the same NFC division. The Bengals, the three random games that they get matched with, the random three games are the Panthers and I want to say the Titans and maybe the Patriots. Like, they get like three of the worst teams in the NFL that are sort of their flyer games, and that goes up against the Ravens, who are first in the division, who have got to play the best teams in those divisions. So that's the difference for me. I think the Ravens is the easy pick. Could the Ravens win again? Yes. Should the Ravens win again? Yes. But it was too straightforward to take them, considering those like, you got a couple of cupcakes in there. Like, let's be real. If Joe Burrow's healthy, they're going to steamroll the Panthers, for example.
Almost so. I mean, I can't argue with you there, but let's. So you have the Bengals over, Ravens over, Browns under, Steelers under.
Yep.
Okay, so I've got Bengals under, Browns under, Ravens and Steelers over is where we differ.
Yep, you have Browns under, Ravens over. Yep. So we actually differ on the Bengals also. Interesting.
Yeah.
Ren has the over and Kurtis has the under. I like it.
Yes, sir.
Well, good luck where are we at now? We're at 5 different and we still got one division to go. And I wouldn't be surprised.
I had a feeling that the AFC was going to spice up our bet a little bit more than the NFC did.
I mean, even if we only had 3 more on the AFC, then those 6 teams would have been really fun to follow too.
Yes.
Throughout this whole season.
Yes.
We would have been
fair weather fans for whatever those teams ended up being.
Absolutely. And it's the best part is you have to be a fair weather fan of the Commanders now. It's amazing.
Well, I've mercifully got many other teams to be a fan of before I have to resort to that kind of nonsense.
That's fair. Yeah, you have the Seahawks here, and let's see here. You got the Titans you get to be a fan of now. You get the Steelers you get to be a fan of, and you get to hate on a bunch of other teams that you probably never thought you'd hate on as much as you do now.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Wonderful. All right, one division to go. Shall we bring it home here?
Let's do it.
All right, this is the AFC West. We got the Chiefs line I'll start from alphabetical is how I'm listed here. The Broncos line is 5.5, Chargers 8.5, Chiefs 11.5, and Raiders 6.5. Now, at risk of being boring, your boy Ren has taken the Kansas City Chiefs.
What?
Yeah, what? This is crazy, right? I can't. I flirted with taking the Chargers, but I fear Justin. Well, actually, I don't know what the latest of Justin Herbert's foot injury is. I fear that chemistry not working out as it's supposed to, maybe, or enough to win that division. The Chiefs always seem to stumble and bumble through most of the season, and then they end up with a division title. I think that's exactly what happens again this year. They might three-peat, to be honest with you. Wouldn't that be crazy to see? But
it would be wild.
But I in this division, there are teams I would take them to lose to because it's interesting. But in this division, I can't do it.
No, the Chiefs is an easy division winner here. I don't care what their offense looks like, who got arrested for what reason. There's no way. With Justin Herbert getting the plantar fascia injury in his foot, I don't know if it's his plant or his push foot, his throwing foot. That's an injury that is notorious for lingering all season, and to get it or throughout a season, and to get it at the start of the season, not great. Anybody who says he's not going to be dealing with that, or it's going to be whatever, that he's not going to be feeling the effects of the discomfort of that throughout the season, I don't believe you, to be frank. There's no way. And to your point, I mean, he's got to develop the chemistry with. He's got his rookie receiver coming in. He lost Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. That the team is in a smidge of a rebuild, an optimistic rebuild, we'll call it, because there is still a fair amount of optimism around that team because of Harbaugh, which I think is fair. I mean, all that man does is win. All he knows how to do is win. When he was with the Niners, he won. When he went to Michigan, what did he do? Win. When he's with the Chargers, probably going to win some more. But this season, I doubt it. It's not shaping up to be. This is not the start that he wanted, I'm guessing, to start his tenure with the Chargers. We don't even need to, in terms of division winners, we don't need to touch on the Broncos and Raiders. There's no way.
No,
there's no way.
No, not at all. Not even close. But I am curious because these lines are so low. Where did you put them? Let's start with the Broncos, 5.5. Where do you have them?
I took the over.
Interesting. I took the under because I am disrespectful and I dislike Zach Wilson. I think that he's trash.
Yeah, I'm honestly not really sure who will end up starting, whether it's Zach or Bo. I guess it would be Zach. I don't know. I mean, maybe a fresh start is what Zach. Let's not forget he was a number 2 overall pick. Like, he's not. And he's
proceeded not to act like it. But yes.
Yeah, I guess he has, but I don't know. Maybe I'm too soft on these kids. Do I believe in second chances? Maybe miracles, perhaps. I
don't think Bo is starting, but consistent with the JJ McCarthy situation and the Drake May situation, it would not surprise me at all if he's in there probably sooner than he should be. But week 8 or 9, Broncos country is going to be if Zach Wilson is not at least competent, they are going to be raining down boos at Mile High for this man. They're going to put Nixon again too soon, probably. But I think that's my understanding, anyways, is that Zach is going to start.
Sure. So I mean, and I think part of my logic is, to get to 6 wins. I mean, I would not be surprised if the Broncos snuck in 2 or 3 coin flip games in there. Looking over their schedule is definitely a possibility, and it's probably more of a feelings, no facts type of pick. And to be fair, I took the Raiders over as well, and that is more a shout out to Gardner Minshew. I'm not going to disrespect him. He held out the Eagles for a few games. We just talked about what he was doing with the Colts last year, had them in playoff contention. Nobody's really talking about that, I don't think, as much as they should have been. That, backup Gardner Minshew is out here balling out of control. Yeah, balling out of control strong, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, playing at a decent level.
Right. And he didn't have Devontae Adams to throw to. So, and Aiden McConnell showed that he's not bad. So I think, the Raiders could hopefully do something. I took the over, and
I'm astonished that I also took the over. I don't really know why. It's not just Devontae Adams. I mean, Brock Bowers is
yeah.
We'll see. I mean, again, it's rookies that are untested and unproven. We'll see what happens. But if he's anything like what he was at Georgia, he's a wide receiver. Like he was a wide receiver for the Georgia Bulldogs, and he was good at it too. I know he plays tight end. We'll see what happens with that.
I'm skimming over their schedule right now, and I almost want to switch and go ahead and take the under. We open with the Chargers, when we got Baltimore, Carolina, Cleveland, Denver. The opening 6 weeks is not horrible, but then we've got the Rams, Chiefs, Bengals, Dolphins. You get a reprieve with the Broncos, but then Kansas City, Tampa Bay. I'm gonna stick with my over, but there's just some tough games in there.
Yeah, the number's probably right, and that's the sad thing is I think what we learned from discussing these things, and just a sort of a meta, taking a step back here, what we learn from discussing some of these is we learn not only which ones we want to take, but we learn which ones we don't want to take. Even if we have a leaning, we're forcing ourselves to make a pick here, but if the line seems right, that's you can use that as justification to not take something.
Right.
I think this is exactly what we would do. Could the Raiders win 8 games this year? Of course. But will they? Great question.
Yeah. We'll find out. Stay tuned.
Yeah. We both have them winning 7 games, so we'll find out if there's something wrong with us. I've actually got the Chiefs under 11.5, despite being the division winner, because 11.5 is a lot of games.
Yeah. It's honestly, when I see 11.5, it's almost always an automatic under for me. It's just any given year, any given Sunday. I mean, it's just a tough bar to meet. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about the statistics of hitting that 11.5 mark. It's only 3 or so teams over the past X amount of years has actually hit that, even being, the dominant forces that they were. So 11.5 is just kind of a automatic under for me.
Is that a team that had that as their line at the beginning of the season and then actually hit it during the season? Because obviously teams win 12 games from time to time, but it's
right. But to start the season with that 11.5 and then actually take the
over. Got it. Okay.
Right. It doesn't happen very often.
That makes sense.
And I mean the Chiefs. Let's not pretend that there aren't some significant question marks. I mean, we saw what happened last year, where they were kind of figuring themselves out, as they went along, and as Andy Reid does, and Patrick Mahomes, when you have a quarterback and a coach combo like that, they figured it out. And of course, let's not forget about arguably the greatest tight end in history. There's a debate to be had, I'm sure, but and the defense. Chris Jones, L'Jarius Sneed was doing his thing. So they figured it out, and I would bet on them to figure it out again. But it'll probably look pretty ugly throughout the season as they do figure it out. Yeah, that's kind of where my head's at with that.
The crazy thing is the Chiefs could go 10-7 this year, and then win the division, and win the Super Bowl, and it wouldn't even matter, and they wouldn't even bat an eye about it.
No. It's going to be if they win the Super Bowl this year, it's going to be the ugliest Super Bowl. It's going to be the ugliest journey to the Super Bowl that I think we've seen in a while.
Barely superseding last year.
Yeah, right.
The game against the game against the Ravens, the game on the road where the Ravens are favored, and it's like, why would you take a team? Why would you take a team to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs with Patrick Mahomes? But at the same time, I don't know. It didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense that the line could have not been the Chiefs just because of how crazy they are. I mean, the Ravens should have won the game on paper.
They should have.
Like you just had this feeling going into it. You're just like, something's up.
Chiefs. Yeah.
Something's up. right now, and you
Yeah.
just know anyway. Until further notice, it's like it is really the new Patriots.
I was just thinking that the Patriots had quite a few years in there where they just look really bad. Look, not bad on paper, but they just look like it was Belichick and Brady and Gronk, and then Wes Welker and Edelman were cool too. But
Yeah.
outside of that, you were just like, however, they did have a few years in there where their defense was pretty stout. So I don't know. Maybe it's not quite the 1-to-1 comparison, but I do vaguely remember some years where we're like, the Patriots probably not going to be able to pull it off this year, and then they put together some ugly bullshit ass season and win the Super Bowl.
It's kind of amazing. I mean, their second season starts in January. Just all they got to do is qualify, and then they can go to work, kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, you got to respect the ability to just lock in, and everything is just a strong reset. We're at zeros again, and don't lose.
I remember I think it was against the Raiders. I remember on Christmas Day, the Chiefs just played this ugly shit game against the Raiders, and I think the Raiders ended up winning. And I don't remember because my wife was in labor and I was at the hospital. But that was the last game they lost all year. I think
it was a turnaround game for them. Yeah,
and it was just like an ugly kind of, and it's just like, how can this team be the team? Anyway, they figure it out at the time when they need to figure it out.
Yeah.
Where are you going on the Chargers officially?
Under on the Chargers.
Me too.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
Nope.
Maybe they'll prove me wrong. I can't do it.
Yeah, maybe.
Yep.
And we've got Gus Edwards as their RB1 and still recovering J.K. Dobbins, Lad McConkey. What was that kid's name? Lad McConkey. I don't remember.
I think it's McConkey.
Who else do they have at receiver?
I think at one point you said you were
Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnson.
Yeah, Joshua Palmer. Yeah. I think at one point you said that you were going to grab your cleats and go play receiver for them.
You know what? If they need a body, I'm sure I could be of service. I can run straight.
Get your ankles broken by some of these NFL corners.
Stop. I could run straight, run a curl, hit a 5-yard in.
Whatever helps you sleep at night, man. not against these players. Whatever you do in your rec league,
they'll put their hands on my chest at the line, and I'll just crumple like a
sack of bricks. Like a cheap folding chair.
Yeah, it would be no good. Have a fractured rib, and I have to go into the hospital because I can't breathe.
You didn't even get a target.
Yeah,
literally just tried to run around.
That'd be no good.
Oh, cool. All right. I think we're done here. So we ended up with a bunch more in the AFC. You want to summarize these? I don't know if you have the sheet open or not. Do you have the?
I do not have the sheet open.
All right. I'm going to do a quick summary here of the ones we disagree on and where the whiskey bet is going to take over here. Dolphins, I've got the over at 9.5. Kurtis has the under. Jaguars, I've got the over at 8.5. Kurtis has the under. Titans, I've got the under at 6.5. Kurtis has the over. Bengals, I've got the over at 10.5. Kurtis has the under. Steelers, I've got the under at 8.5. Kurtis has the over. And then Broncos, I've got the under at 5.5 because I'm mad disrespectful. And Kurtis has the over. So we'll see what happens.
I love it.
Yep. So next week we're going to have a guest, I think. We have to make sure and confirm that he's still in, but we're going to have a guest next week doing some futures betting now that we're all warmed up and he's doing a completely cold start. So I'm sure we're just going to show him up.
Yeah. I mean, what could go wrong?
Nothing could go wrong.
Right. Yeah, he's also a fellow dad starting a new job, has plenty of time to think about this.
I think this is
incredibly successful podcast.
This is all he has time to think of.
The thousands, hundreds of thousands of listeners. Yeah. I
think the people are going to be just pouring in by the time this episode is 2 days old. There's going to be 40,000 views at least.
Oh, I'm sure.
They're going to realize the wisdom that we have, that we've imparted for the rest of the football world.
You know what? We're just doing our part, our duty to society.
I like it. Well, if you want to contact us, we're footballclownsanonymous@gmail.com. We're going to be on Spotify. We're going to be on YouTube, and I encourage all of you to leave a review and let us know what you think. And I
Like, comment, subscribe.
love that. Very, very efficient. Couldn't have said it better myself. All right. We are Football Clowns Anonymous, and we'll be signing off for episode 3, and we'll see you again next week.
Sounds good. Take it easy, man. Peace.
Yep. Take it easy.